everybody. Happy Good Monday to y'all in this beautiful month of March. We are coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans and the beautiful state of Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.5 FM. We
107.7.
Yeah, 107.7. Sorry. I'm having somebody I really wanted to come on the show is here, and I'm like, I want to thank our sponsor, Carnation. We love you. You are the best. Our whole network loves you. No kidding. And we're just going to get straight to it. Preston, I'm going to hand over to you as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Dolly. Love you too. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight on a very special, wait for it, number 100 episode of The Light Gate. Can you believe it? Episode 100. How cool is that? We finally made it. It's a milestone. Pretty excited about it. Thanks for joining us. We love you guys. It's going to be a fun Monday. I'm really excited about tonight's guest for a couple of reasons. So we'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, I'm your host, co-host, Preston Dennett, and lovely co-host, Dolly Saffron. Subject of the book, Symmetry. We're putting out a sequel shortly. Still working on it. It's a lot to do. Writing a book is not easy, as I'm sure you guys know. But super excited about that. And yeah, I see lots of familiar names here. So let me just say a quick hello to you guys. Thanks so much for joining us. It's because of you guys we do this show. Oh my goodness, I'm seeing some wonderful things here, Dolly. Okay.
I already spotted it. I can't wait.
Hello, Teresa. Thanks for joining us. Randy of the Redwoods. My notifications are on, but I never got one. I just happened to be browsing.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Why that happens.
Glad you're here. If you unsubscribe and then resubscribe notification and then redo your notifications, it should be okay.
Yeah, but why? Why does it do that? I've had a few people say that with my YouTube channel.
I know.
Either way, thanks, Randy of the Redwoods. We have the Owlman 77.
Hey,
Happy
Owlman.
springtime. Yes, I'm so glad spring is coming.
Yes.
So many flowers are blooming around here. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
We have Leah saying hello and greetings.
Hello.
Hello, Tim Houston.
Ooh, good morning.
Peak,
Peak.
happy Light Gate Monday. Get your questions in, Peak. we love questions. Even when we do have a guest, questions are always welcome. Hector Gonzalez. Hello, Preston from New York City, Queens.
Oh.
Namaste of endless generosity. Thank you, Namaste. We love you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
You are adorable and kind and giving, and just can't say enough good things about you.
Namaste has been with us from literally the beginning at almost all 100 episodes, and it is unbelievable. I know there are a bunch of you out there. Namaste is kind of at the top of them, and we had another one coming up you're going to talk about, and I'm going to gush. Go ahead.
We have Louise, greetings from New Jersey and other Earthlings.
I love you, Louise.
Jay Kirshenman saying hi from Virginia. Michael Kennedy bringing the popcorn as always.
Thanks to Kylie for me. Love you guys.
Arvo. Oh, Jay, firing up my carnation dispenser.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh my goodness, Louise.
That's what I mean. I'm gushing. Oh my heaven. Thank you so much. You are the best. You are absolutely the best. Thank you so much. Louise is quite the person in our lives. I know all about her experience.
We talked to her face to face on another podcast.
Yes, we have. It's awesome. Yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you, Louise. That's so kind of you. Really wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
We love you very much. Thanks for being here. Great Scott, Louise.
Yeah. Okay.
Star Orchid. Here's to an excellent beginning of a week. Oh, you guys. So generous. So lovely. Thank you very much, Star Orchid 8. Just absolutely honored.
That's also awesome. Thank you so much.
Dana Matthews.
Hi,
Good evening,
Dana.
everyone. Wow, Louise, you are so kind. Yes.
She is.
My
She's
goodness.
Awesome. Yep.
We must have been really good in a past life, Dolly. Just saying. Olivia, blessings, love and light. Oh,
Thank you.
Hope you're having a great night, Preston and Dolly and chat. So nice of you. Okay, I'm going to breeze through this because I do want to get to our guests. We have Thirsty. We have Patsy Foister.
Hello.
From Ohio. Cool.
Oh, cool. I like that.
Mountain Dan from East Tennessee. We got
hi,
Brian
Mountain
Morgan. We got Justin Sane and Jim. Oh, Leah giving a congratulations. Thank you, Leah.
Oh, thank you.
We have Chariz Bazila. And we have White Dragon.
Coolness.
Quite a nice crowd here today. Oh, Brian, happy 100. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Gizmo, congratulations, you too.
Hey,
Thank you, Gizmo. Brilliant design. I am totally not being held hostage by Northwest Montana.
I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah.
Okay. White Dragon, Princess Liera is the name of the Lyran ET lady. Cool.
Cool.
Carol Kai Chen. Hello. Can't wait for the second book. I know. I'm working on it. Olivia, congratulations on 100. We have Chris.
Team.
Okay. Susan Alloway. Hi, Susan. Hope you're doing well. Did you get my message? I sent you a message on Messenger.
You need to find it.
Sue Mulligan, all the way from Dublin, Ireland. And we have Richard Minnick. We have quite a crowd here today.
Yeah, very cool.
Jim Houston and Ruth Kleiber. And
hi, Ruth.
Who else do we have? We have Poetic Poems.
I love that. Yeah.
Poetic Poems. So nice of you. Louise, you are so very welcome. Love you guys. Oh, we love you too. The Tonstar, hi from UK. We have Anastasia.
Hello.
Bambi, hi from Chile, Philly.
Oh, cool. I love Philadelphia. Yeah.
Okay, who else we have? We have Brilliant Design. Oh, Susan L.A., got your message. Will reply. Close. So close to 6 million views and 41. Oh, yeah, my YouTube channel just got 40,000 subscribers. So how cool is that?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to get started now. I don't want to waste any more time. Sorry if I missed any of you guys. Hi, me, Mike. But I really do want to bring on our guest. So I am going to do that right now. Click on the banner first and pull up the bio. All right. Tonight, we are honored and delighted for our 100th episode to have a really exciting guest on. Her name is Linda Rafuse. She is the MUFON Canada National Director. That's huge. A certified MUFON UFO Field Investigator. Yay. The Regional Director for Asia, and a member of the MUFON ERT team. That's the Experiencer Resource Team. Linda is a seasoned investigator with an insatiable curiosity for the unknown. That has my heart already. She has called Southwest Nova Scotia home for 55 plus years, from a young age, having had her own experiences with 2 UAPs. Linda's fascination in ufology and the mysteries of the universe set her on a conventional path of learning. She has worked in the museum field for 35 years. Ooh, that sounds really interesting. Her other passion being history, and has recently retired from her work after managing a year-round county museum along with the seasonal Nova Scotia Museum site for the past 30 years. Nova Scotia has a very famous UFO incident. We'll probably bring that up at some point. In 2024, Linda accepted the position of MUFON Canada's National Director. Moreover, for those interested in the UFO UAP subject, she strongly encourages everyone, and I'm going to second this, encourages everyone to consider becoming a MUFON Canada member and or field investigator. She's one of the organizers for the upcoming 2025 Shag Harbor UFO Expo, upcoming on October 3rd through 5th, 2025. And you heard it here first. Dolly and I are scheduled to be speakers there.
Yep.
Super duper excited about that. So on that note, let's bring the lovely Linda Rafuse in.
Hello. Welcome.
Hi,
glad
Dolly
you
and
made it.
Preston.
I'm so excited about this. You have no idea.
Well, I'm just honored to be part of your 100th show. I didn't realize it was the 100th, but that was big for me. Thank you.
Hey, the honor is ours, believe me.
Absolutely.
I'm really excited to talk to you because it's not often I get to speak to a fellow MUFON field investigator who knows what it's like to take the test and go through all of, but what it's like to talk to people and vet their story and do all the legwork that goes involved in investigation.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as people might think.
Some aren't. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I warned you before the show started. How I like to start is asking everyone about their childhood a little bit. Were you a believer? What brought you into this field? What events led you? Well, I already read a little bit in your bio about how this happened. What brought you to where you are today?
Well, I'm just wondering where to start. My UFO experience wasn't until I was in grade 5, and so before that, I don't know really how much I used to think about UFOs or even really know, or UAPs, or even really know a lot about them. But we lived in Toronto at the time, just outside of Toronto. And it was in 1966, and I was a grade 5 student at Kingsview Elementary School, which is still a school today. And we were out on lunch hour. Sometimes I have a job trying to remember things for, like, was it recess? Or because some of this I didn't even think about until years later. Was it recess or was it lunch hour? Because kids all play the same, no matter what time of day it was. But it was grade 5, 1966, and we were in the back playground at the school. The elementary school was kindergarten up to grade 6. And the smaller grades had their own playground in the front of the school, and we older kids had the back playground. And myself and it was quite a big school. Myself and 2 other classmates were standing in kind of like a little huddle and just having a discussion, and all the playground is full of kids. And the playground that we were on would have been grade 4, 5, and 6. The younger ones were in the front. And so the 3 of us, myself and my 2 classmates, Patricia and Janet, I still remember them well. And we were just standing there talking. And all of a sudden, then, like, the 3 of us were facing each other, kind of like in a triangle. And then, I don't know, for some reason, everything got quiet just between the 3 of us. And the 3 of us, for some reason, looked up. We just looked up. And there were two metallic craft hovering over our heads, 2 circular, dark gray, hovering over our heads, and they weren't very high in the sky. I would say they were maybe, I'm not really a good judgment on measurement, but I'll say maybe 50 to 75 feet above our head. It didn't seem like they were. I can still see them in my head as clear as day. And the thing that I noticed the most about it, the 2 of them were, one was a little bit higher. They were side by side, but one was a little bit higher than the other. And they were round, and they were dark gray, and they were your typical. I've seen so many of them over the years because I've been looking for them. So every time I see one or a picture, I'm looking for what I saw that day.
They were perfectly round, like a sphere?
Perfectly round. But what I still remember seeing on the bottom, they had an inner circle. and the inner circle, it was almost like it was almost like fan blades, and it was just spinning profusely, both of them at the same time. And that's what I remember seeing, were the bottoms, these inner circles of the craft, and these spinning like a fan blade, but like a fine fan blade, fine fan blade.
Say that 3 times.
So the three of us have looked up, we're looking up, and then and we see them, and then we look back down at each other. This is what I can remember. We look back down at each other. We don't say anything. There's nothing. We're not going, oh my God, what's that? Like, nothing is said. There's no emotion. We just look down at each other. And then we happen to look up one more time, if I remember, and we see them going off. And they go off to where I'm standing. They go off to my right, and they go off, and then boom, they're gone. And I don't mean boom, it's just they're gone in an instant. Yep. And then the school bell rang, and we just, like kids, line up to go back into the school and back to class. So it wasn't until some years later, I never forgot it, but I never talked about it. And when I would think about it as I got older is when I thought more about it, when I got much older. And then I just started asking questions like, why didn't we react to what we were seeing in the sky? Why didn't we react to each other? Why didn't we speak? Why, out of the side vision of my eyes, were all of the other children still normally playing on the school ground? Why weren't the other kids going, oh, look what's up in the sky? What is that? Or someone go get the teacher. Someone bring the teacher out. There's something up there. What is it? Like, nothing changed. And so I kept questioning, like, why that was just not normal. And then when we went back...
You're muted, Dolly.
When we went back into the classroom,
before that,
we never even mentioned it.
Did you hear them at all? Did you hear a sound at all?
Me?
Yeah, when they were up above your head, did you hear anything?
Oh, no, there was nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Okay, and when you say fan blade, like it had a middle and there were blades and you could see the blades going around?
Yep, it was a circular. And when I say blades, it was like up and down blades.
Okay, they were teeth, not
yes.
blades. They were like teeth.
And
so but around the rim as teeth, and you saw them whirling?
No, it was like a circle, and inside were blades up and down. Like that's why, because the way it was spinning, it spun like a fan, but the blades were up and down where a fan kind
That's what I wanted to clarify. I'm
sorry.
What you were looking at. Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
So the questions years later that I just wondered, that just didn't seem normal. And thinking, well, even when we went back into the classroom, because the two girls that were with me, we were classmates. And so when the three of us went back into the classroom, we just went to our seats and we never spoke. We never said, teacher. I remember our teacher, Mr. Blackmore, never said, Mr. Blackmore, you should have saw what was out there in the schoolyard. Nothing. And then we didn't live that far from home. We didn't live, the distance between the school and the house wasn't that far. And I remember even like walking home that day. And when I got home, I didn't even tell my parents. And I thought years later, why didn't I even tell mom and dad about it? Like, it was just like we saw it and then something was gone. But the odd thing I thought about, that it's almost like some things would come later on to another question. And one of the things that came later on is I don't have any recollection of grade 6. And grade 6 is in that school. And I can't go beyond, in memory, I can't go beyond grade 5, but yet I can start in grade 7.
That's
And
weird.
so I can remember all of my classes and school teachers from grade primary to grade 12, but I have no recollection of grade 6.
Yeah.
And because that school is still there, I've even thought, maybe I'll just write to the school and say, can I get school records for grade 6 when I was there? Because I just have no recollection. I can't picture a teacher. I can't picture a classroom, but yet I can still walk through that whole school in my mind, but I can't picture where the grade 6 class was.
How close to you were they? How many feet up do you think they were?
Well,
You said a couple hundred feet, like.
no, I would say it was no more than 50 to 75 feet. They were close. They were pretty close to us.
You realize that
close enough. I could see the spaces in between the fans.
That's what I'm asking you, because you wouldn't be able to see that otherwise. It had to be really low.
Yeah.
I have so many questions.
Now, wait, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had an MRI?
Sorry?
Have you ever been in an MRI? Magnetic resonance imaging tube. Okay. Look up the science for this. Okay. People who come in contact with MRIs, and they're very powerful. Okay. And they're in there for an extended period of time, often come out with memory issues. They don't remember how long they were in there, and they will develop amnesia a few days out or even a whole year out, because that kind of electromagnetic radiation on your physical mind can play havoc with your memory. Big time. And
maybe this is what causes missing time when people.
Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. And some people regain it and some people don't. And you can lose a year of your life. Now, if it's only school that you don't remember, that's serious. Okay. Because that means you're being influenced only for that. Okay. And they're able to do that. They're able to direct, because they understand the human body, the physique and everything. They can pinpoint where your memories are going to be for a certain time period or whatever, and let you experience that electromagnetic radiation like an MRI to wipe your memory. I'm surprised it came that low to y'all, and there was only 3 of you and nobody else said a word, right? That's interesting.
It's not unusual with schoolyard encounters. I've got others.
When I think about, like, I can still picture the 3 of us standing there.
Yeah.
And when I see like my side vision, I can still see kids playing back and forth, like kids play and or running back and
they
forth.
can selectively pinpoint parts of your brain that they know, because it's short-term memory going into your hippocampus. Okay. And they can just go and give you a time period where, they give you enough, let you have enough dose of it, where it will wipe. It's like derazzing something. Okay.
Well,
your brain is electromagnetic itself, and it's conscious, and it's like a disc, a memory disc. You can put a magnet on it and derazz it. In other words, all that information will wipe, and they're good at pinpointing what they want to wipe. And for them to come that close, I think that's interesting. Why? Have you ever tried to contact those 2 people ever since it happened?
That would have been my next. I have been looking for those 2 girls, and I won't say I can't. I haven't found them yet.
Okay.
Their names were Patricia McDonald and Janet Wilson. And I still have my grade 5. Oh, actually.
Wow.
I still have, school pictures, right? I carry this close because this is how much I think about this. It's a little ratty, but I still have our school picture.
Oh, wow.
From grade 5.
Do you know which one is you?
I'm working in reverse here. That's me right there.
Okay.
There's Patricia.
Mm-hmm.
She was one of them. And Janet. I'm not doing this. Janet is there.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So that's amazing. Janet. So that's Janet Wilson, myself. I was Linda Womble then, and then Patricia McDonald. It was those three. It was the three of us there, and when it was in 1960, no, wait a minute now. So I remember grade 7. Well, I remember the rest of the school years after that. And I started, and in order to go to grade 7, we had to go to another school, and like a junior high school. And I started grade 7 with, like, I'm assuming I graduated grade 6. I don't remember it, but I would have graduated grade 6 out of that elementary school. And then I went to the Dixon Grove Junior High in grade 7. But that year, about midway between that grade 7, Mom and Dad moved us back to Nova Scotia, because that's where we had started, in Nova Scotia. We moved back to Nova Scotia. And so I lost all contact with my classmates and my friends. Well, not all of them, but I lost all contact with Janet and Patricia. And so we moved back here in but halfway between grade 7, we moved back here, and I've been here ever since. So trying to find, after all these years, Janet and Patricia, because I just want to say, do you remember that day? You know,
I would be interested to know what they all did in life too. I mean, if you have contact and it's a deliberate contact, that means they're watching over you, your family, your lines, whatever.
Okay.
And look where you went. Okay. Look what happened to you. And I'd be curious to know what happened to them individually as well. Real curious, as a matter of fact, and whether they're involved in it in any way, shape, or form, where they're at with ufology at all, or any of the sciences or anything, you know.
I was looking on all different social media platforms, trying, you know, and all I can type in is Patricia McDonald and Janet Wilson. You know, I don't know their married names. I don't know if they're still living.
Oh, yeah, that would be
this book will bring up a maiden name with a married name. In other words, when you go to Facebook, you know, they'll ask you sometimes what's your maiden name. And
what was the city?
They can find you that
or
way.
the name of the school?
Oh, yes. No. Well, the school has a Facebook page. I've been on their Facebook page, and actually I went back to that school ground probably about maybe 5 or 6 years before COVID came. I went back to Toronto to visit some friends of our family. Oh, did I ever?
What was the name of the school?
Kingsview Elementary, and I think it's still called that today. And
Kingsview.
so it was about 5 or 6 years before COVID came, and I went back to visit some friends, and they had just picked me up at the airport, and I said to them, they lived in downtown Toronto, and I said to them, before I go home, would you take me to Weston? Because that's where we lived, in Weston. And I said, would you take me to the elementary school I used to go to? I need to take some pictures. So they did. They took me there. So yeah, I went right in the backyard and took photos. And actually, it seems to me, even on their website, maybe it's their website, Kingsview Elementary, they have, or no, maybe I Google mapped it as well. Somehow I got in the backyard as well, besides the pictures I took when we went there. But I could still even like Google map it somehow and see the backyard. So I took pictures of the exact spot that the three of us were standing that day, just because it's, you know, it's still ingrained there, and you know, there's no answers. So from that day on, and because I couldn't remember anything about grade 6, but 7, 8, 9, and right up to 12, I can remember everything. But I had thought about writing the school or I don't know if it's like a Department of Education or something, to order school records for grade 6. Just to say I was there, just to see who my teacher was. I don't even know the name of the teacher. There's no school photo. There's like nothing. So yeah, but that incident, I was stuck with UFOs after that. I
have a couple of questions. So 1966, you're pretty sure that was the year? Do you know what month?
The only reason, Preston, I say 1966 is because the class picture I just showed you is our grade 5, 1965/66 year. And I want to say I had trouble remembering if it was spring or fall, because all I remember is that we were in our shirt sleeves. So I knew that school was just about ready to be out for summer, or it was early fall, and the kids had no coats. None of us had coats on out, because it was a beautiful sunny day. Beautiful sunny day. I remember that the sky was clear. And
the reason I ask is because I interviewed a lady in Missouri who had an encounter in March of 1966 at a school. 3 kids were the only ones who saw it. Everyone else in the playground didn't see it, came down. They didn't talk about it either. Exactly what you're saying. She did get a message, which was, oddly, remember this day. Remember this day. That was the message she got. But this was just before the Hillsdale College incident in Michigan. March of 1966, another schoolyard UFO encounter where they stayed for 2 hours. And get this is so interesting to me. Like I said, I wrote a book on schoolyard encounters, so I'm like just dying here.
Wow.
The Hillsdale, Michigan college incident, they stayed for 2 hours, by the way. The UFOs actually landed next to the school. But 2 weeks later was you probably heard of this, the Westall High School case in Melbourne, Australia. 2 weeks later.
Yes. Wow.
So this is all, 1966 was a huge year for this. And this is also really interesting. Jim and Cora Lorenzen, who started APRO, said, when Hillsdale happened in Michigan, they said, we've gotten a number of schoolyard encounters. We think they're showing themselves to kids on purpose to get people used to UFOs. Now, Raymond Fowler of Massachusetts, really prominent investigator, said, I have 15 cases that are unexplained. This is March of 1966. He says 8 of them are at schoolyards.
Wow.
So this is absolutely a thing. This is not a random event. They are doing this on purpose. So that's very cool.
It's just because I still have so many questions when I think about it that really haven't been answered. Although thank you both for what you've shared with me, because that's probably more answers than I've received ever to try and understand what we saw. I guess the other thing too that would be really wonderful is if I could ever find Janet or Patricia. That the 2 of them would say, we remember it too.
That was probably in March as well. And I'll tell you why, because they don't show gray unless they're coming down in daylight and there's the sun above them, and they'll reflect the ground underneath you. So March, there's no green grass on the ground yet, and they'll reflect back up gray. That's why you thought they look gray, because generally they are very, very metallic looking. Like you can see your face in like a mirror on them, like chrome, but they will reflect the ground as they come down in the daytime. With the sun over your head, they'll reflect back up at gray. Whatever color the ground is, it'll reflect on them that way. So it was probably in March.
Now here's another question I have, because you may have noticed this as being a MUFON field researcher. The closer someone sees a UFO, within a couple of 100 feet, much greater chance of there being deeper levels of contact. So the fact that only you 3 saw it, the fact that you've had other encounters after that, fact that, you became so deeply involved in this field. I mean, this is pointing towards there being deeper levels of contact.
I did. I was telling my story to someone one time. I just can't remember who it was. And when I said, I don't understand why we were the only ones. I don't understand why we didn't say anything. And the person said to me, maybe they were bringing you back.
Well, that's another question.
You never know. You never know.
I don't know.
How long do you remember them watching this?
They were only above our heads. I would say no more than maybe 30 seconds, 45 at the most. They were there long enough for us to look up, watch them for 30, 45 seconds. We started to look down. We could see them move. They moved to my right, so they would have been the left of Janet and Patricia. And we saw when the two of them started where we were standing in the back of the school ground, what I would call the soccer field wasn't far. The edge of the soccer field wasn't far from us. And when we saw them start to move, our eyes did start to follow them, and they went like over the soccer field a bit, but then it was, I'm saying boom, but there was no sound. Boom, they were gone. Like it was just gone. A flash, they were gone.
Yeah.
So you never ever talked about it with Janet and Patricia again?
There was nothing ever said. Even
another red flag.
Even when the three of us lowered our head, I don't even know how. I can't remember. Did we see them coming? Because all I can remember, the three of us are standing there talking, kids, girls talking on the school ground. All of a sudden we stop talking.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden our three heads just go up slowly. Yeah. And we look up because they're right over our heads. And we look up and we see, and no words are spoken, no emotion, no nothing. And we're there for about, I would say 30 to 45 seconds. And then we look down slowly at each other. No emotion, no word. I will never forget that. Nothing ever said.
I know.
We could see out of the side of our eyes them moving. And so our heads moved, and boom, they were gone.
What this also reminds me of is, real quick, Malcolm Robinson, leading investigator in Scotland. Same darn thing. He described them as spherical. They were looking at them, not saying anything. He completely forgot about it. Absolutely did not remember it until sometime later. And now he's a leading investigator.
Nah.
So there's
one of the most dramatic moments in my life. I'm a UFO contactee all my whole life. I remember everything, okay? When I was working at the zoo, my cousins actually owned it, my cousin Kathy and her husband. And I lived on the zoo with them. And she and I wanted a weekend. When you're at the zoo, it's 365, 24/7. You can't get away from it. And we just needed a bloody day, okay? And there were people there who could watch the zoo for us. So we left. And we went down at St. Pete. Because, it's way south and west of us where we were in Dade City. And we got there. We were swimming. And it was 4th of July, okay? And we went and ate dinner somewhere at the hotel that had this restaurant that revolved around it, okay? And it was wonderful. And we went back to the room and we were just resting because God help us, that's all you get to do when you do nothing, right? And we went out to watch the fireworks. Well, they ended about 9:30, 10 o'clock. And we decided to walk up and down the beach because in our family, it's fun to take flashlights and chase crabs on the beach, okay? And so we were playing around that way, we're going back to our childhood. And all of a sudden, I start to see something incoming from the west, just south of us, like towards Sarasota at Mach 9. And I knew instantly what it was. There were 4 UFOs incoming, okay? And I turned and I looked at it, and I expected her. I said, look. She was slightly behind me, so I didn't pay attention to what she was doing other than thinking she was watching. They came in, they landed, they jumped up, and they took back out. About less than 5 seconds later, 4 more came in. Now my brain is going, what the hell? And I sent a message out mentally. Who are you? What are you doing? The third group that came in, one broke off and headed straight for us, okay, and came over my head and said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Dolly." And, and they said, "Wow." And I said, "What are you doing?" And they said, "No, we can't divulge." And I went, "Oh." And I said, "Well, be careful. It's the 4th of July." And he said, "Yes, we know." And he went back. Now, I turned to look at my cousin because I'm thinking she should be jumping up and down and pounding on me going, "Ah," right? She's like this. I'm like, "Oh, no." Okay. And I popped her. I went, "Kathy." And she finally glued up and she said, "What?" And she said, "You know what? Let's go back in. I'm really tired." And I said, "Okay." So we went in. We got ready for bed. We laid down. And 15 minutes later, she got up and said, "We have to go back to the zoo right now. It's 2:00 in the morning. She wants to leave right now." She was a mad woman. We packed up, we got the car, and we went back. Now, the whole time she's driving like this, she's not saying a word. Chatty Cathy is my cousin, and no, nothing. I'm looking at her, and I'm thinking, huh? And my brain's going, what the hell did they do? Okay, why was she like this? We get back to the zoo, she walks in the door, she drops everything right to bed. And I'm standing there going, huh? And
I call this the silence after the storm. This is common. I don't know why people don't talk, because it's something you think you would talk about.
Wow.
She never spoke of it again, ever. I sort of tried to bring it up a couple times, and she looked at me like I was out of my blithering mind. I went, "Okay, fine, have it your way."
So,
Whatever.
So there's a chance maybe even if I ever do find Janet or Patricia, maybe
I'll bet you money they remember.
They might remember more. You never know.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope one day. I'm going to
give you some ideas on how to find them after the show. I don't want to blurt it out here.
Okay, perfect. That would be great.
Yeah. And I want to give it a try too, because I'm always looking for people this way.
No, that would.
So
well, I'm assuming they could still be in Ontario. They were living in Weston. The two of them. Patricia lived. Her house was right across the street from the school, and Janet's was up by where we lived in an apartment building, just up over the highway. But we were within walking distance of the school, and her house wasn't far from our place.
Wow.
But but listen, you've given me more of an understanding, even in sometimes, I know, it's so easy to go down a rabbit hole and then you just have to jump out of it. And
have you ever heard of classmates.com?
No.
See, in this country, we have classmates.com, and they do high school, but they also do middle school and elementary school. And you go in there and you give them the years and dates of the school where you're at, your info, and then they'll help you search for people in your class. Look it up. See if you might have classmates up there. I will.
Well, I'm glad that I still have. And isn't it funny? I'm glad that I still have this class picture that I showed you. But isn't it funny? That's the only school picture I have. And of all ones that's important to have, that's the one. And with the three of us in the picture.
Wow.
So
here's another question I have. Following this sighting, did your life change in any way? Did you have any dreams about this? Did you suddenly become interested in any different subjects, or did you notice anything?
No, I don't. I can't think of anything I can't think of anything in that following year because I have no recollection of it.
Right.
I only remember going into grade 7. I do remember I remember, we had to walk to that school as well. And I do remember starting grade 7, which would have been a new school. And then probably about 6 months later, that's when Mom and Dad moved us all back to Nova Scotia.
Was that a traumatic year moving to Nova Scotia for you guys as a family?
I remember sitting in the back seat of our car because we drove home. And I remember sitting in the back seat of our car, bawling my eyes out, because I was leaving my friends.
Oh my God. Did you have a lot of notice at all, or did it just happen?
For moving?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It was planned. So it was just that when the day came that we were leaving, and like my best friends all lived there, you know, in the same area. We were always together. So it was an upsetting day. We were all crying because we were leaving each other. But those best friends, we kept in touch, you know, over the years. And
were Janet and Patricia best friends or just classmates?
No, they were just classmates.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's unfortunate. It's
Now,
but
did you ever ask your parents if they had sightings or encounters, or anyone in your family?
My mother was always into the paranormal. She was always, even as a teenager. And I might not be saying that right. She always felt that something visited her when she was a young girl. That something stood by her bed, and it was something that was ingrained in her mind forever. And she was always a believer in the paranormal. And so we grew up with that. We grew up with always being interested in paranormal and ghost stories. Never UFO. Never, you know, the mom or dad. Dad used to love the paranormal as well, ghost stories, but there was never any talk about UFOs.
What about psychic ability in your family?
No.
Y'all didn't talk about it.
No. And so, but and when we used to talk about it, you know, like even my grandfather would like to tell ghost stories, or Dad would like to tell ghost stories, and we and Mom would go, "Let's have a seance this afternoon." It was always, you know, it was always very positive. But when we moved back to Nova Scotia, my father had bought a service station here, not far from where I am now. And you'll never, ever not convince me that there wasn't a little girl in that service station. And
A spirit?
And she, oh yeah, well, she stood by my bed. I can still see her today. And she stood by my bed, and I know this probably sounds impossible, but she shook my shoulder and woke me up. And I can still see her in my head. She was about 5, and she said, "Will you come and play with me?" And I thought it was my sister who slept in the bed across the room. And her name was Tina. And I said, "Tina, go back to bed and leave me alone." And she just kept shaking me and saying, "Come play with me." And when she's saying this to me, I'm on my opposite side, so I can't see her. This is why I think it's Tina. And finally, since she won't give up, I got angry, and I rolled over to say, "Go back to bed." And there was this little girl standing there in a little white dress, and she had a little teddy bear tucked under her arm, and she had long brown hair. And she said, "I want you to come play with me." And I said, "No, I'm not coming to play with you." And then she was gone. And after that, we would hear my whole family after that. It wasn't just me. The whole family after that, we knew she was there. We'd hear her laughing. My father would say, "She's tickling my feet in the middle of the night." Or one of us would feel our bed shaking, like someone was standing at the foot of the bed, shaking the bed. But it was never anything that we were afraid of. We were like darn little teenagers when we knew that she was around. You could feel her when she was around, and we had 2 cats in the house. And we always knew that the cats were the first ones to sense that something's not right in the room. So us as little devils, we'd pick the cat up and we'd throw it in the living room, because we would say, "She's here. She's in the living room." So we'd go get the cat, because the cat will know if she's in the living room. So we would. I know. Oh, I shouldn't be saying this. No, I mean, it was a gentle throw.
No, I know. I'm just kidding.
pick the kitty up and we would toss her into the room to land on her feet, but she'd be going, ah!
Oh my
So
God.
we knew she was there, and then the cat would run out. But it was all good. It was all a good feeling. And still today, you know, I'm not far from where that service station was. I mean, it's demolished now, but I never pass it without thinking about her, wondering if she's where she is. And when we left the service station, another owner came in, bought the service station, and we lived, it was an apartment above the service station, and so another owner came in, and we had moved out. By this time I was married, and he knew my sister, my other sister, and he went down to her one night, and he said, her name is Sharon, and he said, Sharon, I'm bothered. He said, there's something up there in the garage. And he said, it sounds like a little girl and she's crying. She's upset. And Sharon said, well, it's probably the little girl, you know, that was always there in the house. And we just felt like, and this didn't happen like too long after we had left. And we just often wondered if it was her, and she was upset because there was nobody up the, even though this new owner came in, he didn't want the apartment. He just used the apartment for storage. And,
my gosh.
So yeah, we just thought maybe it's her and maybe she's upset, you know. And she looked to be maybe about, I'd say she was no older than maybe five. I'm pushing it if I say 6, but yeah. So I've grown up with being interested in the paranormal. So the UFO thing took me, or UAP as we say today, took me, it wasn't anything that we ever talked about. But after that incident there at Kingsview, I've never gotten it out of my head. You know, and that's what led me to MUFON, because I just thought, you know, I need to go in a direction where there's all kinds of people who are interested in the same thing, and maybe this is where I'll get my answer, you know, or some sort of understanding, you know, of why. But Preston, even with what you're saying, like of all the schoolyard incidents that you've written about, or the people that you've talked to who also had no reaction or had no words to each other. That's the first time I've heard that. Like, so I haven't done a lot of reading on the schoolyard, but that's the first time I've heard that. It's good to hear. You know, that tells me it is something that is common. And so, you know,
it's particularly common in cases where people have deeper levels of contact. You know what I mean? When it's close, perhaps, or a message was received.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember there being any message. Just all these questions, and you know, of why we didn't. Why did we seem to be the only 3 that saw this, or you know, did other kids experience the same thing, and maybe they have the same questions I have. I just feel like I just see kids running all around the school ground like we normally did, you know, during a recess or a lunch hour. And, you know, why don't I remember anything of the following school year or even the rest of the year? But yeah, so that led me to MUFON. When I learned of MUFON, that was one of the reasons I joined, because I've been looking for those 2 craft.
But you had another sighting following this?
Nope.
That's your one main sighting?
Yeah, that's my the one that's ingrained up here. I'll take that to my grave with me.
So what was the turning point that you're like, you know what, I need to become a field investigator?
Well, after when I first learned about MUFON, the drawing card was just all about ufology. It was that was the drawing card, of course. But then I knew that if I studied to be a field investigator, I would get to talk to people. And by talking to witnesses who were submitting reports, I didn't know, like, just being a member, maybe how would I get to talk to people? And I love to hear people's stories. I love to hear other people's stories about whether it's just a sighting or whether they're an experiencer. I just love to hear about them. And so I thought, when I saw that there was an opportunity to be part of MUFON, and that there was an opportunity to study to be a field investigator, that I knew that I would have a chance to speak to people. And that's what put me there. So I took that direction, completed that, and became the field investigator. And I've been doing cases ever since, even as national director. I'll never give up doing cases, because I love to talk to the people. And I feel a special privilege to be also on the ERT, the Experiencer Resource Team. I've only been on that now for maybe just a couple of months after I took on national director. And that takes a little bit more interviewing to be one of these team members. And so I was so pleased when they accepted me into that. And that's when, with the people who are submitting those reports, who have had more than just sightings, have had actual experiences or contact, then the experiencer resource person actually contacts like personally, and has sometimes a Zoom meeting, or a very long phone call, or even just meeting. And it's really even more of a one-on-one with people, and to hear some of the stories, it's just, I love it. It's a privilege to listen to these people, and we're all just good for each other, right? We're all just, we're all sharing our stories, and we're all just listening to each other with open minds and no judgment. And I don't know how many people who submit the reports to MUFON, and I mean, I'm only talking about MUFON Canada, but there's just so much. We know it's across the planet. But I don't know how many people have said, I'm only telling this story to MUFON because if I try to tell it to anyone else, well, I'm just labeled crazy, or I'm a kook, or I'm a nut. So, I guess that's what leads us all to MUFON, all of us with the UAP stories. And yeah, but you get to talk to some wonderful people. Yeah.
I'll never forget becoming a field investigator. I was
what
pretty
state
young.
are you a field investigator for, Preston?
California is.
Oh, are you?
I mean, this was years ago.
Oh, okay.
I was quite active in the late 1980s, early 1990s. I joined MUFON in 88.
Okay.
And they started giving me cases. I'm like, wow, I'll never forget. Like, I interviewed one guy, I still remember his name, Brian Forrest.
Yeah.
He saw a UFO right by LAX. He worked for the Park Service.
Wow.
And saw one come down right in front of the airport. And I had to fill out all the forms, do the little drawings, and man, I'll never forget.
And you get to see some great photos and some great video and great drawings. I find too that now, with there being a lot more of the UAP issue in the news and the media, I find that more reports are coming into MUFON Canada, that are older cases, like back in the 70s, back in the 80s. I find that, and those are good to see, because those are, to me, I think those are stories like mine that, you don't, back then you didn't share them a lot with, with people, but now, people are going, hey, I can tell my story now. So
That's a note I would give to anybody. Just because your incident happened in the past doesn't mean it's not valuable.
right,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
Yeah.
Do report it. I always encourage people to report it, because I
Well,
find most people don't.
that and Preston, it's funny you say that. Like, we all have, as field investigators, we all have like our introduction letters that when we try to make first contact with the witness who submits the report, we do up our own introduction letter to say who we are and why we're contacting them, to talk about the report that they submitted. But in my introduction letter, I have that very thing, Preston, to say thank you for submitting that report, because there's so many who see things or experience things and they don't report them. So, you can imagine and you guys know, you can imagine what the numbers would be if everyone were to report what they were seeing or experiencing. I know I know people here, not that far from where I live here, who are not people with sightings, but people who are experiencers who have never submitted reports to MUFON or any, like, I know there's New Fork, like any type of reporting, they've never, and these people are experiencers. And they just, and they're experiencers from a long time ago, and they've got stories. But
I always ask people when I interview them, because they come to me in a variety of ways. I'm like, "Did you report it to MUFON?" And usually the answer is, "What's MUFON?"
That's right. That's right.
I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, no.
Most people don't report. I'll be real generous and say it's 1 in 10, but no, it's closer to 1 in 100.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Preston. There's times like there were a few Facebook pages I used to follow, like UFOs in Nova Scotia. I'd follow like some UFOs in Ontario, UFO sightings in Ontario, UFO sightings in Nova Scotia. Like, there's each of the provinces seems to have their own UFO social media platform.
Yep.
And like MUFON Canada has one as well. And sometimes I'll go reading through those just to see what people are reporting, or they'll put some photos on. And that's some of the ones that I'm reading, I'm thinking, why don't you report that to MUFON? Because, there's more on there. Just what you said, Preston. There's more on there. Stories, pictures, videos that you never see at MUFON.
It's funny. I'll interview people and they'll say, we watched the news the next day and there was nothing in the news.
Yeah.
Did you call the news?
Yeah.
No. I'm like, well, neither did the other 100 people who saw it around you.
No. Yeah, but it's true. It's and the other thing that's true as well, Preston, that there are people, like you say, who don't even know who or what MUFON is. Yeah. And at some point, I know we've talked about, we have monthly Zoom meetings now for our field investigators, and we've talked about trying to do some sort of promotional event or something that
it's a lot better than it used to be. People really do.
Well, and I think, I don't know if it's, with all of the discussion of UAP now, especially with the US with their disclosure, and now Canada's kind of coming on board a little bit. They're still a little bit behind, but maybe, maybe it'll get a little bit better. But I find people are a little bit more open to it. I mean, at least now, it seems like to some people you can even talk about UAPs.
Well, you had Paul Hellyer, the former defense minister.
Yeah.
We didn't have anything like that here.
No.
He's a major guy to really come forward.
Absolutely. And we have and there's a couple of other ones now in Parliament that seem to be pretty good. So Larry Maguire seems to be in the news at times, or was earlier, and he's an out west member of Parliament. And so, we'll just see where this goes with, with your country pushing disclosure so much. Our country's not doing that. But I shouldn't say they aren't. They're starting it now. They started it a couple of years ago, and finally the Canadian government said, okay, when we need to listen to the people, let's do something. And they launched the Canada Sky Project, and that project was basically started to well, I think what the end result will be when it all comes to fruition will be something like your country creating Arrow. And so this will be kind of like Canada's Arrow, when I forget what the acronym stands for, all domain.
Yeah, all domain anomaly reconnaissance.
Yeah, something like that.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, but I think that's what our Sky Canada project will be at the end, because they're talking about trying to create a dedicated service to create a type of management system in how to collect, investigate, and detail these reports. And I think what they're talking about too, like, it's the same thing that MUFON does, because I remember the first time I read it, I thought, well, MUFON does that. And
yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask. So is Sky Canada a government associated?
Yeah, it's the Canadian government. It was put out.
Okay. I have an opinion about all this. You want to know what it is?
Uh-oh.
MUFON, everybody in the government everybody was for a while accusing MUFON of being compromised by the feds. Okay.
Oh.
And every other country as well. And as I'm watching this evolve, and then Arrows show up, and ATIP and all these guys, and now you're telling, and they were, ATIP and Arrow are governmental agencies, feds. You're talking about a new agency that's a Fed. I'm beginning to realize that they're trying to push MUFON out and have everything go to them, because they're still trying to control narratives. Okay. And I think they're the ones who are compromising the information, not MUFON. And the reason that MUFON is not as well known is because they kiboshed your guys.
Well, let's face it, there's a cover up. I mean, we know this. This is a subject that's very hard to push forward.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point, Dolly. And thank you for saying that, because I do believe there is some truth behind that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
A few agents got into MUFON, and I'll tell you why I know that is because I did report. Okay, I reported twice, actually 3 times, and I went back. The first time I reported, I waited a while and went back and looked for my file. Gone, nothing. Gone. I went to the Miami Herald looking for the news report, because it was in the Miami Herald as well, of what was seen that night as well, and it's gone.
Yeah, I'm still looking for.
And I think that they've got agents on the inside wiping files in certain areas. Okay, this bothers me a lot. But MUFON as a whole is by genuinely interested people who are giving of your time, because you're not really paid as an investigator at all. This is coming out of volunteers. You're inclined to be honest. Nobody's paying you off for anything. That's better information as far as I'm concerned, because you guys are doing this out of the love of your heart to do it. And you're doing this. But ATIP, these guys are making lots of money. And saying nothing. Oh, well, we're studying it. When anybody in their right mind understands is that they know way more than they're telling you. It's the feds. Okay. We've had presidents warn about this coming up on us like this. Eisenhower being the one I'm zeroing first. He worried about the industrial complex. He warned everybody about it, and it's real. Okay. And I think that they're absolutely powered into controlling the narrative about all of this. That's why UAP is the narrative now, not UFO. They took control of that narrative as well. They don't want you to call it a UFO. They want you to call it a UAP. Yeah. And it wasn't MUFON that did it. It was ATIP and okay. I find that.
So I'm curious, you've been a field investigator. How many cases have you researched, and what do you remember some of your early ones or some of your favorite ones?
For me, how many have I done? I've done over 200. I think the last count I had was 244. And that's
tremendous.
I really enjoy doing it. And as I
Wow.
say, you know, I won't stop doing it. I'll continue as long as I can. And have I had any like favorite cases? Yeah, I do. I have. They're just I'm trying to think. It was 1978. The lady, these were two cases that I did that stick in my mind. It was a historical case, 1978. And actually, I think it was August the 1st, 1978. And she was in Richmond, BC, on the Fraser River. And they were teenagers. It was a group of teenagers. And she said her name was Janet Janet Wood Wilson. So close. It's like, oh, not quite close enough.
That would have been amazing.
So her name was Janet, and she said there were about 10 of them. She was about 17 at the time, just a bunch of teenagers hanging. It was in the industrial part of Richmond, BC, down on the Fraser River, down in the industrial area. They were all down there in their cars, about 10 of them, you know, a couple of cars, but about 10 teenagers. And she said they could see this thing coming down the river. It was about 11 o'clock at night. They could see this thing coming down the river, but they thought it was a tugboat because of the area that they were in, and it was headed towards the tunnel. And I didn't ask her what the tunnel was, but it sounded like a bridge that went across, and there was a tunnel underneath of it. And so they thought they saw a tugboat coming down the river. So one of the kids jumped back in the car and shone his headlights on it. And when he shone the headlights on it, it started to rise out of the water very slowly. And it wasn't, well, of course, it wasn't a tugboat. She said it was a black triangle. And it was a triangle that slowly raised out of the water up. And where they were standing on the shore, it came to them. And as it approached them and stopped overhead of them, it shone a beam of light down over them. And some of the kids got scared and they jumped back in their cars to hide, like down around their seats. But some didn't. They just stood in awe and amazement looking at it. And she said when it shot, he shone the headlights on it, but she said the craft knew exactly where we were. She said it was like they didn't have, because some of us weren't in the vehicles, but she said it was just like they knew exactly where we were. They knew the spot, exactly where to come, and they put the headlights, the beam of light down on us. And she said she stayed out of the car. She said when I looked up, she was describing what she said she could see almost frosted window type windows on the bottom. And there were lights in the corner. I think there were red lights in the corner, and then this white light that came from the center of the beam. And she said it shot the beam of light down on them, and then it went out, and then it started to hover slowly away. And a couple of the kids jumped in their cars because they were going to follow it. But as soon as they started to follow it, it just boom, it was gone. And so that, I was intrigued by that story. I thought that was, when I was reading it, I kept in touch with her for a while, because I told her, I said, when I was reading it, I felt like I was in a movie, because I could just picture this thing rising out of the water, when you're thinking it's a tugboat coming down the river. I just thought, what a visual that must have been.
That is odd for it to be so. Was it touching the water, they thought?
Well, it must have been touching the water because they thought it was a tugboat. They thought it was a tugboat in the water
Hovering
coming
just
down the
above the
river.
water. Yeah, you know you're describing a TR-3B, and they existed in 78. A TR-3B. It's a back-engineered UFO by our government.
What is it, Dolly?
A TR-3B. And they were flying in 1978. And
were they? Wow.
Yep.
This would be good. In
British Columbia, that doesn't surprise me. Okay.
Well, and I may ask you about that at a later date, Dolly, because the Bob Spearing had asked me if I would write that article up because I think it's just such a great story. If I would write it up for the MUFON Journal, and I asked Janet if I could, and she said, "Of course you can." And I haven't done it yet, but I think Janet would be interested in hearing those kinds of things.
The younger TR-3Bs, the ones way back then in 78, had the red in the corners, the 3 red lights, and then the white light in the middle. And now they have reversed that, and the white lights are in the corners, but there are different array type of white light in the corners and a big red light in the middle. They switched it around, and but they're matte black. I mean, matte black. And it's technology is what it is.
She sent 3 drawings. Actually, a couple of the kids have since passed. But she sent 3 drawings. One was by a friend of hers of what it looked like, and kind of drew it on an angle as well, and then drew the underneath of it, and then drew it what it looked like as it was hovering away. And so that's the story that will always stick to me because I have that visual in my head of it rising out of the river. And the other one was in Caledon, Ontario. So many reports come in from Ontario. Ontario seems to be a real hot spot for
I've interviewed a few people from there, actually.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I've interviewed a few people who had encounters in Ontario.
Have you? It does. I mean, we have MUFON Canada has a report or a few reports coming in daily, and I'd say probably the biggest part of them are Ontario and BC. You get the odd one in Quebec. There'll be maybe 1 or 2 in Alberta, but Ontario's the hot spot. I'd say BC is number 2. And once in a while, we'll get some Nova Scotia cases, but not very much from Newfoundland.
Why do you suppose Ontario, is there anything there that you might be?
Well, it's funny you say that because I've asked myself that same question, and all I can think about are those 3 Great Lakes.
Yeah, well,
I think about your USOs, and I'm thinking, is it great? Well, but saying that, I was reading a case that came in because she was actually a girl. I thought, I should contact her. It was a case I didn't have. It was another MUFON Canada, another field investigator who had this case, and it was in Ontario, in Toronto, and it was an older. It was close to my sighting in 66, but I want to say hers was maybe, I think, 67. And she said that her and her girlfriend, they were just, I think she said she was maybe around 12, something like just young girls. And there was a motel on the shores of Lake Ontario down in, just like right in downtown Toronto. And her best friend, who this girlfriend of hers, there was a motel, and the best friend's parents owned this motel, so they were out in the yard playing, and of this motel. And she said that all of a sudden, this craft flew over top of them, but it sounded like she saw it for a while. And then she said it kind of stopped and hovered a bit, and then it flew out over Lake Ontario because they were right on the shore, and it went into the lake. She said, I watched it. It went into the lake.
Amazing.
So I've often wondered why Ontario isn't so full of sightings if it has anything to do with those. I mean, it's the Three Lakes, but it's also Lake Ontario, which is like an ocean itself. You know, if you're on it, you'd never think you were
That's
in the
where
middle
Steve
of Canada.
Boucher had his encounter, I think.
Yep,
He's,
it is. Yeah.
He's pretty
Who
famous.
was that?
Steve Boucher. He wrote a book about his encounters. He just recently passed. He was a pretty famous contactee.
And it was
Canada.
on Lake Ontario, was it? Or one of the Great
I think
Lakes?
so, yeah. I
Wow.
seem to remember. Yeah.
I would believe that. And you know, a lot of the Ontario cases that come in, like there's not a lot of Northern Ontario, but they're right, and a lot in farm country.
Lake Ontario is closer to the United States. Okay, we have massive bases up there, from Wright-Patterson all the way up. There are hundreds of them, and Wright-Patterson being a hub, like out west, Wright-Patterson is a great big place. We also have Northrop Grumman and places out there, all the way out to Washington.
Yeah.
And they're back engineering all the time. And you all would get sightings from that alone. But ET watches everything they do.
Yeah.
Or they used to. And you would get a lot of sightings that way. And yes, they're coming and going. They use the water to cool off. Or they'll go down and just hang out for a while, take water on, and then go. So, yeah.
It's funny you say that, Dolly, because like living here in Nova Scotia, we're surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean. Right. And, most of our coastline are fishing villages. And I can't tell you how many fishermen come in, like lobster fishermen. These are like daytime. They'll come in. Well, sometimes the offshore, or I should say inshore lobster, they'll go out and they'll stay like a couple of days out to sea, but they're still like inshore.
Right.
And my brother-in-law being one, and I can't tell you how many of them come in and will tell you what they've seen out there on the ocean. And I remember one coming in and saying that they watched a craft out on the water. They were out lobster fishing, and they watched a craft out on the water, hovering. He didn't say how many feet, but it didn't sound like it was close to the water, but just above it. That they could see it very well, but they said the odd thing was it was like it was sucking up water.
Yep.
So I find that's interesting that you say that, because I'd never heard that before.
They have major batteries on board, and you go through a lot of water. The craft use a lot of liquid, and they'll run out or they'll get low and they'll go down for a dip to get some.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Batteries, high charging batteries need water, hydrogen. Okay. And that's part of the balance of their energy in those batteries. And they need water. They need it to cool off, and they need it to run the craft. So, yeah.
So many stories. Oh, and so the other one I wanted to tell you about, if that's okay.
Yeah, maybe we can get to some questions from chat.
So do you want to do that first, or I can share that?
No, let's hear your story.
Okay.
You still got time.
So another lady, she in Ontario, her name was Anne, and she sent in a report to MUFON. She was from Caledon, Ontario, and that's maybe I'm trying to think where Caledon. Not far from Brampton, I think. Anyhow, it's in farm country.
Right.
And so this actually was at her mother's house in Caledon, and her mother has big fields in the back of her home. And she has, the daughter had set up a trail cam. Because her mother lives alone, the daughter had set up a trail cam in back of the house facing down towards these fields because they were just vast. And so she sent this one video to MUFON, and I got the case, and it was how animals can trigger trail cams.
Mm-hmm.
So this raccoon triggered this trail cam and turned it on. You could see the raccoon just walking around the ground. But within maybe, I don't know, within 10 seconds, these lights rise up from the ground, but you can see that it's further down the field, and these lights, and it's like nine lights in a row. They're almost like an arch, like if it was a circular craft, because this is like, I think she said around 3 o'clock in the morning when it was triggered. And so like if it was a round craft that you could see, it was like you could see it was encircled.
Oh, I
with
see what you're
lights.
saying.
There
Yeah.
were nine lights in a row, but you could see there was a little bit of an arch to it. And you could see it coming, raising off the field, and then it flew as it was just ascending very, like not high. It was very low and not a steep ascend. And it went right over the raccoons as it was, or the raccoon as it was ascending, went over the raccoon, and the raccoon didn't even, the raccoon just kept going about its business.
It didn't float up in the sky into the.
Well, and it's funny when I saw that, I wondered, okay, this is farm country. What's there? And it was all beef cattle and dairy cattle mostly, the big cattle farms, because you think about the cattle's being abducted or taken. But so Anne sent this video in because she couldn't explain it.
Did you see the video?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a couple technical questions.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I need answers. Okay, so in the film, did the entire array of lights fit in the frame with the raccoon as it came over?
The raccoon was gone, but when the lights showed up.
No, the raccoon was there the whole time in the video. The video is, okay. I'm sure Anne would be okay with it. I could show you the video, Dolly.
I'm curious because a big craft would not be in frame in that type of camera that close. You would see it far away and then come up, and then only one or two lights would show as it came into frame closer over the raccoon. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the 3D information that I need to see off that film to see if it was, because there's two things it could be. It's either really a craft, if it's an infrared camera, night camera, night vision, and it could be an insect that's reflecting and it looks like lights coming toward it. And that's another
9
reason.
lights in a row? That doesn't
Yes,
sound
there are insects that look like that. Yes, there are. That's what I want to know.
Yeah,
So
I know what you're saying. And I'll show you the video.
I would love to
I sent the video to, I told Anne, I said, look, I'm not the expert on this. It needs to go to a higher level person than me. So I sent it to MUFON's, one of MUFON's video photo analysts. And not MUFON Canada, but down in the US. I forget the gentleman's name, but he was the guy who you were to send your videos or photos to. So I sent it to him and told him the story of the lady, what the story was, and that no one could explain what were these lights. And he came back with his analysis, and he said, I cannot explain what that is.
Wow.
At all.
He
said, I've ruled out everything.
Yeah, I have 40 years of evaluating film.
I will see if I can send it to I'll figure out how I can get you to see it, Dolly, because
you have to remember, perspective. Cameras are cameras, and the lenses can only see so much. And if you see something from the distance coming toward you, because perspective, the lights would spread out as it got closer.
It did.
From 9 lights to 1 or 2 lights. That's all you would see.
No, it was gone out of the top of the frame. It started like here on the field, and then it went like this, just like a plane taking off on a runway. Okay. And as when it started off here on the field, it was the 9 lights, and then it just started this this ascend, like very slow. Well, no, it wasn't slow, but it wasn't a steep ascent. It took off just like an airplane, the way it comes off of a runway.
Yeah.
But it was getting closer. The 9 lights were still there when it flew over and right out of the top of the frame. And the raccoon like is down here, and like he just doesn't. He's still going about his business. So
yeah, I'd love to see that. Yeah, because
I will. I'll see
there's
how
a way you can determine how far ascension and declination inside a frame. Okay, and you can determine how far away it is to begin with, versus how high it is as it's going over the lens of the camera. And if there's light going into the camera as it goes over it, if the raccoon lights up more, you want to look for things like that, because that means it's really low to the raccoon.
Yeah.
If no light hitting the raccoon as it goes over, then it's very high above the raccoon.
Yeah. No, there was no light. There was no light. No.
It may have been higher than the perspective.
Yeah.
So
did you ever get any cases involving entities?
Yeah. With being on ERT, with being on the experiencer resource team. Yes.
Yeah. I find those the most interesting.
I love talking to those people. Some of the stories are just fascinating. The experiences that some of the people have, even, like, and saying, like, there's the same thing too, that could be said, Preston, about people not reporting to MUFON. There's a lot of people who have these experiences, and they don't report them. Those ones, they especially
if there's entities,
they don't want to talk about them.
Nobody likes to be thought of as crazy. That's why.
Well, a gentleman just down the street here from my house, who's lived here for years, and I mean, we've been here for over 50 years in this house. And he's lived all these years down here, as a kid, and now he's living up in the next county. And I was just talking to him a couple of years ago, maybe not quite. And he said, Linda, I know you're part of MUFON now. He said, I'm going to tell you my story. And he said, I wouldn't have told you any other time, but he said, we live on a river here. And he said, I took the motorboat out when I was a teenager down in the river, and I took it down out into the harbor, because we're just, I don't know, like maybe we're not even a quarter of a mile from the harbor, the mouth of the harbor, going out into the ocean. And so a lot of people, they're always on the river here all the time. And he said, I took the motorboat down to Coffin's Island one night when I was a teenager, and he said when I got over towards Coffin's Island out in the harbor, he said this light came out over me, and he said I didn't have any fear of it, but I don't know what it was. And then he said, I just figured I better turn around and go home. And when he got home, his mother was sitting crying at the kitchen table, and he said, I never saw two parents so happy to see me home. And she grabbed me and she said, Ed, where have you been? And he said, what do you mean, where have I been? I just took the boat down to the harbor. And she said, he thought he was coming back, like, not that long. And he had been gone for hours. And he said it was almost 11 o'clock before he got back. And he said, I have no idea. He said, Linda, I wasn't gone that long. I just went down. But he said, all I can remember is that light over my head. When I got close to Coffin's Island, I didn't know what it was. And I thought I better turn around and go back. And ever since he had that, happen to him as a teenager, and I hope Ed doesn't mind me telling this story. I better ask him. It's too late now. I've already said it. He'll be fine with it. I'll tell him. But ever since he had that experience, he's had so many things, like through the night, dreams, visitations, Yeah, like all good, but it's all entity.
Driven,
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
He
Well,
has
when missing
quite
time like
he has,
that.
he has quite a story. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe we can hop up a few questions because we actually used up most of the 2 hours. Okay, so let's see what we got. Okay, Michael. Michael keeps asking this question over and over again. We've addressed this. Maybe you have some information. Linda, can you shed any light on a possible, quote, too large to move UFO crash that was built over to cover it in Canada?
Michael, I have the same question. We're all waiting to find the answer. I know exactly what you're talking about. I do. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
I don't know the answer yet either, but I'm waiting as well.
All right.
When
Linda?
when did you find out about it?
About the object that had something built
Too big
over
that you built over, yeah.
it? Maybe about a year ago.
And when was it supposed to have happened?
I don't know. That's all I heard about it. There was a craft too big to move that they had to build a building over it.
Who was the originator of the story? Do you know that?
I heard it through Ross Coulthart.
Yeah, I think that's right.
About a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
So yeah, I'm in line with the answers too, waiting for the answers. Yeah.
You're not going to get it.
That's quite a mystery. I don't know. Does anyone know where even that story came from?
As far as I know, it's Ross Coulthart. I think he has a whistleblower or something.
Oh, okay.
Isn't he in Australia?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, can I tell you a secret? I'm not going to tell you a secret. I'm just going to flat out say it. You know, I've got Talata. I can talk to him anytime. Okay.
Yeah.
And the first time I heard about this was about a month ago. Yeah, my contact. And I went, "What's up with that?" And he said, "Nothing. It's misinformation and disinformation."
Oh.
So that's
so annoying. This field has got so much of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bothersome. All right. Well, I want to ask another question from Michael.
Yeah.
Linda, are there any, quote, crop circles like phenomena in Canada's past reports? Everywhere. There's crop circles everywhere, as far as I know.
Yeah, especially I think there was one maybe around, was it around 78? There was a big crop circle story. No, wait a minute. Maybe it was the same year. 67 was 67. It seems to me it was the year like of Shag Harbor, the Falcon Lake incident, and I think the big crop circle incident out in Alberta.
Did they get a picture of it?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a drawing. I think there's a drawing. I haven't seen it in a while, but it seemed, I can't even remember the name of the farm, but it was a farm out in Alberta, and it was the crop circle. It was the crop circle story. That's the only one I've heard of. That I'm sure that's something that could be Googled, because I know they were the three big stories, I think, of 1967.
Right. I know there's some really fantastic landing trace cases up in Canada.
Yeah.
I think his last name was Fuhr, Fuhr. I don't know. I can't remember. But
and it was what?
Landing traces.
Landing traces.
3 UFOs land, and it crushed the grass and kind of.
Well, and that very well could be even like what the crop circles are. I'm not sure, because it seems to me, if I remember, there were 6 marks in the drawing. But I'm sure if Michael just Googles it, the 67 crop circle story in Alberta.
Wow.
There's a diagram.
All right. So here's a question from Louise, and this is regarding memory. Do you think that the, quote, forget this event that ETs instill in some weekends as people remember more through the years? So I guess,
well,
if you understand that question.
Let me read it again, because I'm getting a point from that. Do I think that forget this event that the ETs instill in some can weaken as people remember. I actually see some truth in that. And
yeah, I'd
just
say it's a fair
because
statement.
just because more questions have come to me through the years, and it's almost sometimes like I struggle to try and fish out that day, and to fish out, like, just from my experience, to fish out my memories. And sometimes it seems like the more I try to think about it and to try to bring something out, it's like I get more confused. And then I'm thinking, why am I getting confused? I'm trying to figure this out, and I'm trying to remember. And then it's like all of a sudden this confusion hits. So I can almost see something in that question that makes sense to me.
Yeah. These are the crop circles. They're very famous. Can you see them?
Oh, yeah.
They're some of the most famous crop circles that are at. That's why I went looking for it, because I know.
Were those the Alberta ones?
Yep, that's them.
Oh, okay. Well, it might be the 6
Beautiful.
circles there.
Yeah.
They're a really big deal.
No.
Yeah. That 67 seemed to be a year for the 3 big events, and then they had the big Clarenville event in Newfoundland there with the big. But I think that one was later on, maybe around 78, with the big craft over the island there in Newfoundland, just outside of St. John's, and there was all kinds of people who stood on the shore and watched that one. Including an RCMP officer who did a big interview about it and filled out a big report. And still today, he lives here in Nova Scotia now, and still today says he knows it is what it is. He said that's what it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, going back to memory.
I want to know what it looks like. Did he describe it?
Oh, yes. Actually, I think he painted it. It was oval. It was a long oval that had some type of what I'll call a fin, a little bit of a fin on the end of it. But it was an oval. If you Google the Clarenville, Newfoundland incident, I think it was 78. You'll see, and I think Jim Blackwood was the RCMP officer who answered that call. And then when he stood on the shore and watched it, some of the people there in the area came with him, and that was a through the night incident as well. And Jim today lives. Well, he's been retired for a long time, but today he lives here in Nova Scotia.
Wow.
Yeah. So going back to the memory thing. Yeah, I agree, because I know I had an encounter that I completely forgot. Absolutely forgot it. And it came back to me like 3-4 months later spontaneously.
Wow.
But having interviewed a number of people, they'll sometimes have a trigger. They'll see the word UFO or something, and boom, it just, I think sometimes when the time is right, I guess, I don't know.
Yes.
People will suddenly remember more. So there's something to that for sure.
Yeah. It was good to read that in that sentence, because I felt like that made complete sense.
Instead of like, this is for everybody. Instead of just trying to remember the incident as a whole, you go back to the very first moment of the incident in your mind and calmly replay it in your mind, second by second by second. In other words, you see everything as it's happening. You run that reel, and if any new information will come in, it'll come in that way. But if you're just trying to see the whole thing at once and trying to make sense out of it, you're not going to. But you have to replay it yourself. That way it's coming directly from you. There's no confusion, and you know what you saw. And it's your brain being exercised into remembering as you do that. It's a type of self-hypnosis that you can do. And because you're asking yourself to see it again. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you might try that technique. It might help.
I have actually kind of done like a play-by-play, going through it from the beginning of the reel to the end of the reel. And that's when, sometimes that's when the questions used to come. Well, why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you do that? Or why didn't that kid do this? And that's when the questions would come. Why didn't I tell mom and dad when I got home? That came later. That didn't come. All those questions didn't come at the same time. They came at different points when I'd be thinking.
It took me a while to realize I had missing time with mine. So I'm like, well, why didn't I tell anybody? I don't remember driving home. I should have turned around. All these questions. Another technique I found that works well is writing it down and then filling out the narrative. It's like, okay, well, let me insert this until you get, it'll start with a paragraph and then suddenly you have a page and then you have 2 pages. You start to build a much more complete picture.
Okay, now I've not tried that one. Yeah,
it's a good technique to really start to fill in little details. Because then suddenly I'll be, now I remember, this detail or that.
Yeah.
That's what I always tell experiencers who are struggling with missing time.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a few more questions here. I think we already asked this, Gizmo. Did you ask if her parents had any experiences? Yeah, we asked.
Yeah, not with UFOs. It was paranormal.
What about siblings? Any?
My siblings with UFOs? No.
It's just you.
Just me. Yeah.
Is there
and they're not interested in hearing my UFO story.
Oh, no.
Well, the one's not too bad, but the other one goes, "No, Linda, I don't want to listen to that." It's okay.
Yeah, I have 5 brothers and sisters, and kind of like, stop talking about UFOs. Except for my brother, who of course saw one. What are you gonna do? Yeah. Is there a MUFON in Quebec? Well, yeah. I would assume, right?
We have a field investigator in Quebec, Kevin, and Kevin. Sometimes when Kevin, one of the things we're trying to figure out right now is we sometimes we'll get a language barrier with the French and the English. And so we're trying to figure out come up with a better solution for the language barrier. But thank God we have Kevin, because sometimes the reports that will come in from Quebec are in French. And so Kevin looks after that, bless his heart for that. And Kevin's also an ERT on the ERT member. And I
took French for like 7 years in school. I can speak it. It's hard to understand, but I can get along.
Yeah.
So he speaks it really, really well. Don't kid yourself. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, yes, we have Kevin in Quebec.
Very cool.
And it's always good to have more. That's why, just speaking about our field investigators right now, we have about 15 field investigators right across Canada from coast to coast. And there are some provinces that are missing. We don't have any PEI. Newfoundland, we just got one in Newfoundland. We don't have any in PEI, New Brunswick. And
15 is not that much for a whole country.
No, that's it. That's all we have. Well, and see, when I first joined, there were more. When I first joined MUFON, I think back in 2018, there were more field investigators, but there were enough that if whatever case came in, whatever province it came in, that field investigator for that province was assigned the case. So now that we have provinces that are missing field investigators, we now just kind of all share each other's cases. And so if a New Brunswick case comes in, then usually I'll take a New Brunswick, being closest in Nova Scotia.
Well, that's the way it should be.
Yeah, but we all share each other's cases. So I can do BC cases, or BC will do Nova Scotia cases, and it works well. It's just sometimes it would be good to get a few more field investigators because we get a little behind in the cases because there's not enough. Some will come in. Sometimes they'll come in spurts, and it's like, whoa, slow down because we don't have enough field investigators, and so they have to wait in line for a little bit. So, but we do have. We just got a new field investigator, so we have a new one in training, and we have 2 more who are studying the manual right now. So that will add 2 more
Cool.
to the
Yeah.
list. And yeah, so it's starting to pick up again, which is great.
All right. Well, we're almost out of time. I want to go through a few more questions, rapid fire.
Yep.
Just a few seconds. I don't know if you can answer this one from Larry Hank. Has there ever been a cylinder-shaped UFO in Canada?
A cylinder. You know, I think the closest that I could come to a cylinder would almost be the shape of that one that I was talking about in Newfoundland. When I said like that it was oval, it was almost like that it was described as cylindrical. That would be about the closest I would come.
I bet I could find one if I were to look up, New Fork.
Oh, yes.
Newfoundland.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Here is a question which is kind of interesting from Dana. Ask Linda if she knows an Audie Uden that lives in Nova Scotia, part of MUFON.
No, I don't.
All right.
And she's part of MUFON, I believe.
All right.
I will remember her name.
Here's another real quick one. Do some UFOs get very small? Yeah, there are some tiny UFOs.
Well, don't you find that there's so many of just the spherical ones, the little metallic
like
balls?
or something.
I'll tell you, you want to see the hotspot for those, like the little spherical balls or the metallic balls or the white lights. You want it right here in Nova Scotia, up on Cape Sable.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's even historical there, even along the beaches, the white lights coming out of the water or the white balls coming out of the water. And that's been going on for so long up here in Nova Scotia and Cape Sable that, 100 years ago, the parents, when the kids used to go outdoors to play, they'd say, now you stay off of Daniels Head Beach, watch those white lights when they come out of the water. Or down here in one of the fishing villages not far from here, years ago when, kids my age that were kids back then, remember the white lights that used to come out of the water. They used to call them fairy lights. They said we didn't know what they were back then, so we just called them fairy lights that were always coming out of the water.
All right.
So, it's been going on for like generations, right?
We're pretty much going to have to stop here. But Dolly, here's a question for you real quick. When the UFOs go in the water, do they fish? Are they going fishing?
No.
Okay.
They do not eat our fish. Our oceans are polluted. They won't have anything to do with them.
Yeah.
All right.
Good question.
One more real quick question. I don't know if you know of this case or not, but this is
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
96.
Clarenville, Newfoundland. Oh.
No, that must be it seems to me that the one that Jim did, I thought was back in 78. But this one here is a large silent triangular craft. The one that was hovering over, I think it was Random Island in Newfoundland, just outside of St. John's. That was the one that he was saying it was oval, but I remember him saying something like a cylindrical shape with the fin on the end. But I'm not familiar with the 96 Clarenville. Isn't that interesting that that's two in that small.
You have to pay attention to what the lights looked at, because like I told you, 78, the lights are different than newer. Okay.
Yeah.
The lights are going to be white on the triangles and red in the center.
Right. We didn't get a chance to talk about the Shag Harbor Conference, but I thought I'd give it a shout out real quick.
Okay. Yeah, we've got a great lineup of speakers, including the two of you. Can't wait to hear your presentations. And Darcy Weir will be back. We had him last year showing. He'll be showing hopefully his newest transmedium. I don't know if it'll be his newest. His newest one is the Puerto Rico UFOs. So I'm not sure if he'll be showing that, but he'll be showing one of his films. We did Transmediums last year, Transmediums Fast Movers last year, and that's how we got Mark as a speaker this year, because Mark was on Darcy's Transmediums Fast Movers documentary. And Mark is video and photo analyst for MUFON
Cool.
in the U.S. And he's also an astronomer, so I think he's going to be really
That's cool
to listen to.
Yeah.
Kevin Randall, of course, retired military researcher for many years on crash retrievals, cattle mutilations, abductions. He's got the whole kit and caboodle, so he'll be great. And both you and Preston, Dolly and Preston, can't wait to hear you. Martin's going to be our MC. Martin Willis, he was our MC last year, wonderful podcaster as well. And then Chris Stiles, he's our Shag Harbor resident expert. And
yeah, we're hoping to get him on our show. I've got him in contact with him. We had a weird week last week, and I haven't got to it yet. But please let him know that the contact.
I did. I already did.
Right.
And he's expecting your email or your call.
Okay,
and you know, you'll be so happy to have him on, because there's nobody that knows that Shag Harbor story like him.
I read his book.
Just to go on the tour.
Well,
so you know.
yes. But
Yeah.
he also, you know, he has now extended it into the Shelburne story, and that's where the mystery grows.
Ooh, okay.
And because
cool.
it's become two different parts, so
Right.
it'll be great for you to have him as a guest.
All right.
Cool.
Perfect.
Well, thanks, Linda. That was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you asked me. Thank you so much.
I know. And we're going to catch up again. I'm serious. Like after we go to Shag Harbor, we might have you on again after that, because that's going to be fun to talk about.
I would love that.
When we sign off, please stay online with us. Don't go away. All right?
Okay.
All right. Well, just let me say thank you again, Linda. It was amazing. And thank you to everyone in chat. We really appreciate all the wonderful donations you guys made. Namaste and Louise. Amazing, you guys. Star Orchid. I don't know how you do it. Gizmo, Larry Hank, you guys. So awesome. Bob Thorson, we love you so much. Thank you very, very much. And yeah, Linda, you were awesome. I'm sure I had a great time.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to all of your guests that were here with us tonight as well.
I especially loved the Schoolyard story because it just touches me. Just know that kids are seeing this.
Give me some clues as to how to find the girls.
Yeah, well, yeah, we will. Dolly, you're muted again. Don't know how that keeps happening to Dolly.
Yeah, they don't like me. We have issues with that. Okay. All right. Thank you, Linda, so much. We're going to do this again after Shag Harbor. I'm going to get dates set up with you afterwards.
All right.
Everybody, thank you for visiting with us on this wonderful Monday night at the Light Gate. We will be back next Monday for our 101st show. I'm excited about that as well. We're coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 105.3 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.3. And I probably put that backwards. I'm too excited tonight. Anyways, dyslexia is on me tonight. We're so glad that you were all here. I want you all to go and have a wonderful week. And everything we talked about, look it up yourselves. Go to Google and find out what we were discussing and bring the pictures up for yourself. I hope everybody does do that. It's a wonderful thing to bring information up, and we kind of hope that you're going to back up and look at it yourselves. All right. We love you all. Namaste.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.